Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Stacy, and I'm a bookseller and the events coordinator at Belmont Books. Belmont Books, for those of you who are not familiar with us, is an independent and locally owned bookstore in Belmont, Massachusetts. Before we begin, I'd like to let you know that we have a number of virtual events coming up in January, including Alan Shane, author of The Rain May Pass, in conversation with Chris Castellani on January 5th, and Ariella Ilovic, author of Cheeky, in conversation with Siobhan Gallagher on January 6th. You can register for these and our other events on our website, belmontbooks.com, which is also where you can purchase tonight's book, Rachel to the Rescue. If you have any concerns during the presentation, you can send a message to the host in the chat section. If you have any questions for the authors, please type them into the Q&A section and we will get to as many questions as we can. We're very excited to welcome Elinor and Caroline, and I want to tell you a little bit about them, and then I will turn the event over to them. Elinor Lipman was born in Lowell, Massachusetts, yay, and is the author of more than a dozen novels. Her first one, Then She Found Me, was published in 1990 and was adapted into a film starring Helen Hunt, Bette Midler, and Colin Firth. She won the New England Book Award in 2001, and her novel, My Latest Grievance, won the Patterson Fiction Prize. She also got a Lifetime Achievement Award from the New England Library and Information Network. Elinor has taught writing at Simmons, Smith, and Hampshire colleges. She served on the 2006 Literature Panel for the National Endowment for the Arts and as a fiction judge for the 2008 National Book Awards. Rachel to the Rescue is a mischievous and funny political satire with a delightful cast of characters. Elinor currently lives in Manhattan as well as in upstate New York. Caroline Leavitt is the award-winning author of 12 novels, including the New York Times bestsellers Pictures of You and Is This Tomorrow? Her essays and stories have been included in New York Magazine, Psychology Today, More, Parenting, Redbook, and Salon. Caroline is a book critic for People, AAPR, and the San Francisco Chronicle, and she teaches writing online at Stanford and UCLA. Her most recent book, With or Without You, was a Good Morning America book pick, a best book of the week or month by numerous publications, and a publisher's weekly fall book of note. Belmont Books was lucky enough to do a virtual launch event with Caroline for With or Without You back in August, and we're so happy to have her back again, and welcome Elinor. And without further ado, I will turn the event over to the two of you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for coming. I'm Caroline Leavitt, and I have so much to say about Elinor Lipman before I get to her wonderful book. The first thing is that Ellie and I met in, I think it was in 1994. It was a long time ago, and AOL had just come out, and I remember looking and saying, oh, there are authors on here. And I saw Ellie's name and I spent days trying to craft just the right kind of humorous email to entice her to respond to me. And you did, and we became friends. And it's been a wonderful, long friendship. She was there for the birth of my son. She gave him a little bathrobe. We've talked, we've reconnected. Okay, so I want to talk about her book first, and then I'm going to ask her all sorts of questions. And she's also going to read for us. Before I go to my questions, I want to reveal something from the wonderful Ron Charles at Washington Post, where he said, when Lipman finished Rachel to the Rescue in May, she was unable to find an American publisher for her book. Stop. Houghton Mifflin Harcourt has just bought it up, so it's coming out in the United States. This was despite Lipman having published a dozen other comic novels that have led critics to liken her to a Jewish Jane Austen. She's better. Including 1990's Then She Found Me, which was adapted to film in 2008 by Helen Hunt. According to Lipman, U.S. publishers told her that American readers will be so done with Trump satire by next year, and that the earliest they could publish it conventionally would be later on. So she took the novel to the UK, Lightning Books, who rushed the book and have now made it available, and it is fabulous. Said the Yorkshire Times, Lipman's book is a masterwork of wit, comic timing, and plot convolution. Actually, the whole review is like one rave sentence after another, and everyone should go and look it up. Okay, so my first question to you, Ellie, is in a very perverse way, I feel that Donald Trump has led your career to new heights. First, you started these hilarious rhyming tweets, which became the book Tweet Land of Liberty. And now there's Rachel to the Rescue, which is really about a woman who used to work for Trump, who gets embroiled in all this brouhaha. That's hilarious. So I want to know the story of how it all began, starting with the tweets. And then I want to ask you, what are you going to do when Trump and all his friends are gone?
Okay, I think that's 3 questions. Well,
It is, I'm sorry, I got excited.
the tweet started because I was at a conference in the Aspen Writers Workshop, and I went to a seminar on tweeting because I wasn't doing it. And someone from my agency was on the panel, and afterwards she said, oh, we talk about, you'd be great at this. So, flattery gets you everywhere. So I went home and I wrote my first tweet, which happened to be about gay marriage being approved in New York State at about 2 a.m. the day I got home or something like that. And then the next morning I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a rhyming political tweet every day from now until the election, which was 2012. So it wasn't Trump yet. But
Right.
So I did that. And never having counted how many days it was, because it was 15 months to the election, but I stuck to that. But then cut back to Donald Trump. So that one really was about the 2012 election, where Obama beat Mitt Romney, who now seems like the best
Normal, right?
like in the entire world. We love him. So as far as this book, I had this idea that I'd like my character maybe to just be fired from the Trump White House, but I didn't know what the job was, and I had a few ideas, but none seemed right. And then one morning, I read in Politico about this department in the Eisenhower the new old executive office building, the Eisenhower. Anyway. And it was the White House Office of Records Management. The acronym is WHORM, WHORM. It really exists.
Love that.
And the sole job was taping together the documents, the memos, whatever it was, Donald Trump ripped up and taped it together. And I said, okay, this is it. That was the job my character had. So I just went forward from that. And she was fired for sending an unfortunate reply, all sarcastic email, escorted out to the street where she gets hit by a car. But, complications ensue, as they say.
Were you nervous at all as you were writing this? I mean, did you think what was going to happen if Trump had been reelected and he had an enemies list and he thought, what about that Lipman woman who wrote that book about me?
I'm still hoping I'll be on the enemies list. We joke around here about Trump, about me getting arrested because I'm up in the country and the local constable, a friend of ours, and I'm thinking, oh, great, Mike Kelly will ring him take me up to whatever the closest jail is.
Did you send the book to the White House?
No, but
Good.
scarily, a person who was helping me, a former librarian, still friend, David Ferriero, is archivist of the United States. Very nice person to know, who helped me a little bit about, where that actual office was located, and, just helpful. Read my first chapter to make sure I had the geography right. And David, wait, I forgot what I was going to say about Trump. Oh, when the book actually became a book, I wrote him and said, I want to send it to you. And he wrote me back and said, could you send and sign one for the head of worm? So, yeah, so I thought, well, so I wrote an inscription and said, hope you didn't mind me, like making a fictional character out of this. And then I wrote, I salute you. I mean, what, wouldn't you salute someone who had to do this for a living? Yeah.
Did you ever hear
Still
from
going
any of
on.
them?
No, because I sent it media mail. He probably just got it
Oh,
yesterday. Yeah.
okay. That is hilarious. That is hilarious. I also want to say that what I loved about this book, that even though it's this political satire and it's really, really timely, it's also this extraordinarily charming Elinor Lipman novel. It's Rachel has a real arc where she becomes a full person. She has a kind of romance. Well, she has a romance,
Yeah.
and she grows and changes. And there's a really deep vein in there about friendship, which I absolutely loved. I think all of your books sort of have that. And there's also a whole lot about food. So, which again, we were talking about that beforehand, where I was talking about how your books always made me so hungry. So I was wondering, when you were writing this book, was it hard to balance the political stuff with the regular stuff of your novel?
What would happen is I'd write a chapter where the work side of Rachel's life, because she gets hired by this sort of muckraker, not very talented muckraker, who likes the idea because he wants someone with an attitude. He thinks, being anti-Trump is good for the position, and as his research assistant. So I would be in that groove and writing about the job and about the complications that the person who hit the car that hits her is driven by someone on the way to the White House. And
Yes.
so I would write that chapter, and then I would say, okay, time now to go back to her personal life. It'll be her roommates. She has two roommates, and she's these doting parents who own Klein Wallpaper and Paint in New York City. So she had grown up, with a sort of little bit of a, retail experience. She didn't like that, didn't want to inherit Klein Wallpaper and Paint. But so it was just a matter of, okay, time to now talk about her private life, her love life, her friends.
It all came together beautifully, just absolutely beautifully. Especially Rachel's voice is absolutely indelible. I mean, I just felt like I was sitting across a cafe table with her, if we could do that now. So I wanted to know, how do you go about finding the right voice for your characters? Do you read your stuff out loud, or did you just hear it in your head?
I hear it in my head and I don't move forward. This doesn't quite answer the question, but I don't move forward. I labor over every chapter because I send every chapter to two wonderful writers.
Oh, tell me who. Could one of them be this person?
Yes, yes. One of them is dear old friend Mamie Medwed, and her new book Minus Me is coming out January 12th. So we want you all to read it. So
Yes.
send a chapter as I write it to Mamie Medwed and Stacy Schiff, the biographer, who was my very first editor when she was 25 years old. My first book was at Viking, and then I followed her to Pocket. But so I don't want to waste their time. So I polish and polish and polish. And it's not really answering your question about the voice. I think, I wanted, Rachel doesn't have the highest self-esteem, which I like doing. I wouldn't have been able to write, um, um, what's the book with, at Vogue magazine. What's that one?
Right, right.
Famous book, famous movie. I wouldn't have been able to do that and put my character in, the highest of heels. So I like kind of sending my character to charm school or giving them more self-esteem, and I liked that she's a work in progress. Her two roommates work on her, and they, sort of pick Alex at the vintner, who works at the wine store down the street. That was pretty much their doing.
Okay, I'm going to ask you one more question, then we're going to have you read from your book, and then I'll ask you some more questions, and then people in the audience can ask questions. I want to talk about creativity and how one thing meshes into another. Not only are you a spectacular cook, and I still remember the meal that Jeff and Max and I had at your house, and Ben was there when Max was a little boy, and it was delicious. I don't remember what it was, except it was delicious. And you're an expert knitter, wonderful knitter, and you're also very good at friendship. How do you think the three things morph? Like, do you look at cooking as a creative pursuit the way you look at writing? Or is it different for you?
Those three things, I think I've modeled my life after my mother's. I think that
Oh, that's
the only
lovely.
thing is that I've abandoned, I stopped following the Red Sox, but still root for them. But that's a good question, but I think any answer I gave would be like flattering. I'm not really an expert knitter. Caroline's only saying because I told her she could backstitch.
Yeah, that was the best thing ever. Any knitters out there, backstitch, don't weave.
But no, I grew up in a house where cooking was important. My mother was a great cook. My sister's a really good cook. And so it would be, I can't imagine, I don't know how I would answer this without like being self-regarded.
Well, that's all right. I mean, it's probably in your DNA. So would you like to read for us from a few pages?
Oh, sure. I said to Caroline, like, just for a minute, because what's worse?
Okay.
Long reading, maybe a long eulogy. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I've mentioned that Rachel's parents own Klein Wallpaper and Paint. She'd been in the hospital after she gets hit by the car. So let me see. So she gets a call at work, and she's a little skeptical because they had an agreement, was a new rule was codified. If anyone calls for me, say I'm not there, would have no comment anyway. So anyway, she gets this call and she picks it up in her back office where her father's eating a salami sandwich. This is Rachel Klein. Who's calling? I can't say. I have some highly sensitive information you might find useful. Her voice was sitcom nasal, making me wonder if she was trying to disguise it. About the driver of the vehicle that almost took your life. Do you know her identity? I said I did. Police report, lawyer's visit, BuzzFeed. And you know her how? I asked. I can't say. Then with no lead up, no warning, no, are you sitting down? She said, she's having sexual relations with the president. Trump? Of course, Trump. First impression, crackpot, liar, crank call. Yet who in my position, after months of taping presidential scraps back together, getting the heave-ho, nursing grudges, wouldn't feel scandal hopeful? My apparently stunned expression made my father ask, what? What did she say? I motioned, not now, shush. Are you still there? Asked the woman. Because I just told you something that most people would consider game-changing. I heard you. I'm trying to figure out why. Why what? You think it's implausible that a woman would have sex voluntarily with Donald Trump? No, trying to make sense of why you're telling me instead of name the place, the Post, CNN. You were their victim. Where do you think Veronica was headed when her car ran you down? To see the president? Yes, where she goes, still goes, every Tuesday and Thursday. Had my accident happened on a Tuesday or Thursday? What day had I woken up in the hospital? Did you hear what I said? Veronica was rushing to the White House when she hit you. I heard you. I just don't know why I should believe you and what I'm supposed to do with this alleged fact. There was a pause, then triumphantly. Veronica is a doctor of optometry.
I want to add, that was wonderful. You have a really natural way of reading. I was talking with some writer friends last week, and we were talking about how sometimes it's painful to hear writers read because they do these dramatic pauses. But when you read, it sounded like the way you write. It just sounded very natural, and it was lovely. I want to ask you about Melania Trump, who factors in the novel in a truly delightful way. So I guess I want to ask you, without giving too much away, what were you thinking when you were writing about Melania?
Well, let's see. If you're giving Melania's husband an affair, and there had to be some repercussions. Oh, well, here's a little mildly interesting thing, is that at some point, Rachel is sitting home with her roommates, and she was about to help make the fajitas, but then her new boss, Kirby Champion, the not great writer, texts her and says, turn on CNN. And there's kind of a like, not a chase, but Melania is in a car and she's heading north on 95. So I had her driving an Escalade that she might have borrowed from her husband. So, but I figured, well, who knows if that would be at all possible, whether the first lady could ever jump in the car and drive north. So I called the Secret Service.
Wow.
I did. I called the Secret Service, and they can't give, because I couldn't be like a murderer asking how many people would be
Right.
involved. But I got this really nice man. It was sort of public relations kind of guy. And he said, well, I can't really tell you exactly, but if you watch the movie, it's about the First Lady with Shirley MacLaine, then that is quite realistic in terms of.
Wow.
And I watched that movie. It's very good.
What's it called? What's it called?
Oh,
Oh, never mind. I'll look it up. I'll look up Shirley MacLaine.
Yes. Shirley MacLaine, First Lady. Oh, she's the widowed First Lady, and so I put her in a car where she was being driven, and she stops. There's really a place, the Joseph Biden Welcome Center on 5. Now, not to say that I predicted the election, but I have her stop and pee at the Biden Welcome Center. And Rachel wonders whether that was really, just a FU to her husband to stop.
It probably was. You can't.
Most research I did, I called the Secret Service.
I want to talk about, there was one thing in the book that I wrote it down because I thought it was so wonderful. It was one particular insight that really struck me. Alex mentions to Rachel that his mother is dead, and Rachel asks him, what was her name? And when I heard that, I was so astonished. And so was Alex, because he remarks that people usually don't ask that question. They ask, how are you doing? When did she die? Was she sick? Blah, blah, blah. But it's such a sensitive question to ask. What was her name? It acknowledges that somebody was a human being and a person, and you want to know that thing about them. And I just felt that was very much like the way you deal with people in your life. So it's not really a question, it's just more of a comment that I'm making.
And thank you. And I can't say that was calculated or studied. It was just, it seemed like the right question to ask.
It's lovely.
Also, 2 people have volunteered that the name of the movie was Guarding Tess.
Oh, right. That's right. Okay, I have one last question for you.
Oh, sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just rudely interrupted you. Did you have?
No, not at all.
Okay. I want to talk about happy endings in book. We have a happy ending in your book, and we have a happy ending now for those of us who consider it a happy ending. And I just want to say that if there's any Republicans out there or pro-Trumpers, you're welcome here too, and we'd love to hear your questions. No, we talked about this beforehand. We have a happy ending with Trump's defeat. Do you think we're going to have a happy ending afterwards with his supporters and with the country? Do you have any thought? You don't. Can you talk about that?
I'm worried, what I'm in my home with my lovely person, Jonathan. He keeps reminding me they are a minority. There's only, there aren't that many. It's like 30%. So stop saying on the news, the base. I'm hoping that this devolution in the past 5 weeks and the ridiculousness and playing golf every day while Americans are in line to get food and getting evicted and can't afford and have no money, that people will see the golfing and the silence and, the deaths and everything as do not give him your loyalty or your vote, or yeah. So I think it'll take a while, and I'm worried about that he invited people to Washington on
Right.
January.
Yeah, I worry about that too, though. Jeff, my husband, says they're probably all living in their mom's basement, and there are a lot of talk, but I don't know about that, and I think that's what's so scary to a lot of people, that we don't know. Um, but I don't. Do you think that there's a possibility of something like this happening again in the future, like in 2024?
When you say, you mean another Donald Trump?
Another Donald Trump.
No, I mean, there's a possibility, but and I'm no pundit, but I'm just hoping that this last 5 weeks is his legacy, and they say, that somebody comes to their senses, meaning the good people who founded the Lincoln Project. And
Oh, I love the Lincoln
all that stuff.
Project. Oh, I have to ask you about location. You lived in Northampton for a really, really long time, which is a totally charming town. And then you moved to my ideal city that I love with a passion, Manhattan. Has it impacted your writing at all? Has your writing changed being in the city?
I don't think it's changed, except I've now set 3 books, starting The Family Man in New York, and Penthouse, The View from Penthouse B was set in New York, and Klein Wallpaper and Paint is in New York City. But I don't think it's changed the writing. I don't.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good. But you're actually, I was going to say bi-coastal, but bi-coastal New York, in the sense that you're upstate New York and you're also in Manhattan,
Well,
right?
it's, actually, I once heard on Leavitt or Leavitt. I love that, Leavitt or Leavitt. I heard they were interviewing Kristen Gillibrand, and they said, "What is upstate?" And she said, "Albany." So I am only 60 miles north of the city, so it's considered Hudson Valley.
Okay. Oh, Hudson Valley
Not to
is
correct
lovely.
my wonderful interviewer, but
That's all right. So I also want to know, how has this is the question all writers get, and you're probably going to inwardly roll your eyes, so you'll be too polite to do it in person. But how has the pandemic affected your writing? Just your schedule and your.
I've written more. I usually would write 5 days a week. And when I was finishing Rachel, I was writing more. I was writing 7 days a week. And I'm now writing the next book. And I found it, and it actually quite literally affected, because I wove toward the end of the book. One day I was finishing yet another, dinner party in my book, Rachel to the Rescue. The roommates are cooking. I think it was a Shabbat dinner for somebody who'd never had a Shabbat dinner. And I suddenly found myself writing. I didn't know at the time that it was going to be our last public gathering. And then I brought it up to the present. So it's actually, COVID-19, isolation, Zoom. I can't say what happened over Zoom, because that would give away my happy ending.
Yeah, so can you talk about the book that you're working on now, or you don't want to? Or?
I can say this. It's actually the only book I've ever written, I think, that had like an elevator speech. But it's 2 people who live in the same building in New York City, and they're both under house arrest.
Oh, that's interesting.
White collar, of course. Yeah.
That's interesting. I have to ask, what part of New York City? Because that colors the
in
drama.
my building. It's in
your building.
It's in my building, and I give it another name, and I don't usually do that, but I did.
That's great. And so have you found that your reading tastes and your film tastes have changed because of COVID? I mean, I know there's a lot of people who only want to watch very lighthearted stuff. I personally have been watching a lot of horror movies because they somehow make me feel better. What have you been watching and reading that's gotten you through this?
Okay, well, one of my favorite books of 2020 was by the wonderful writer Patty Dan, called
Patty's great.
The Right Sister, which is, first of all, I love epistolary books, and it's both, and Catherine Wright is the sister of the Wright brothers, and it's just, it's her imagined voice, and it's through diary excerpts and letters to Orville. Orville abandoned and never spoke to her again when she got married at 52.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm digressing here. So of course I binged like everyone else on The Queen's Gambit, and I went through about 8 seasons of a very old British police procedural, A Touch of Frost. So should we take questions?
Yeah, well, let's take some
Oh,
questions.
maybe not. Did I? And what else am I binging?
No, that's fine. That's fine. Let's take questions. Hi, Stacy.
Is it too early,
I'm
Stacey, to
back.
take questions?
No, we got a lot of questions, so it's
Okay.
fine. Okay, so first from, sorry, just lost one. Okay, from Kate, who says, I love Rachel to the rescue and wonder how on earth you got it written and published so quickly.
Oh, good question. Not written all that quickly, the usual time. I think it took me about 15 to 18 months, which is the usual. But what happened was when the US publishers were all saying, not all of them, not every publisher in the United States said this, but the ones that my agent selected to show it to, oh, in a year's time, we'll have Trump fatigue. So after about who knows how many turn downs, I slipped it to my British editor, and he read it in a day and said, I'm bringing this out immediately as an ebook. And now I heard this on September 25th. He said he was bringing it out immediately, an ebook on October 16th, which happened to be my birthday, total coincidence. And as the print edition on the US election day, November 3rd. So it's, I don't know, the aforementioned Jonathan keeps saying this is the new way publishing should operate. And so they were able to do that. And that was fun, because now the Trump fatigue is more like Trump disgust.
Indeed. Okay, Bunny says, hi, Ellie, you look marvelous as always. Am I seeing a ring on that left hand?
Oh, that's so cute. Oh, you are seeing a ring. I call this a friendship ring. So people won't hit on me on the subway because of my significant other.
Excellent. Okay, Marilyn would like to know if this is the first novel that's been published to include COVID.
I'd love to claim that. It could be. But
It's hard to know, I think.
It came out, ebook October 16th. So maybe.
Certainly up there, I would think. Margaret would like to know if you've written novels in the first person before.
Yes. My first novel, and I won't go through all of them, my first novel was in the first person. And then when it came time to write my second one, then I checked with my editor, the aforementioned Pulitzer Prize winning Stacy Schiff, whether or not I should do, like, the more grown-up thing would be to be the third person. And she right away said no. And I said, why? And she said, because with the first person, you can get down and dirty. But I have had, The Family Man was the third person, and I won't go through all of them, but I would say probably 10 of them at least are in the first person.
Ron would like to know if anyone in the White House has threatened to sue you yet.
No, but I'm hoping for that. As I said,
that would be wonderful.
I know it. That would be, although I think actually that I checked with an intellectual property lawyer as I started writing this, and Trump is a public figure, and plus this is fiction. So I included Ivanka, and I made up Ivanka's Hebrew coach, Shoshana Gottlieb. I made her up. And of course, Melania is in there, and a little jab at Jared. Yeah.
Cheryl would like to know if HMH has a pub date yet and says she can't wait.
No, oh, thank you. No, I'm really thrilled. This will be my seventh book with Houghton Mifflin. And the book I'm writing now is also under contract with Houghton Mifflin. So these are like 7 and 8. And I think if this weren't, like publishing is shuttered right now, it's long Christmas break, I might know the answer to that. But I'm hoping that, I'm sure it'll be, a paperback. And I'm hoping they use the British cover. This, the artist is, I think, Welsh, and he did it in about a day. And he did 2 beautiful covers for the same English publishing company on Turpentine Lane and Good Riddance that I loved on the first iteration. It was yes. So I'm hoping Houghton Mifflin, my editor, does love the cover. So we just need the cover committee, something like that, to say yeah.
All right. Katie asks if you have run into any challenges with your creative process given the current pandemic.
Creative challenges. Well, I don't blame the pandemic. I mean, there are days I start a new chapter and I think, I don't think I can write anymore. This is drivel. And this is, what was I thinking? And this is, I rewrite it and I end up cutting half of it. I've been working on a chapter for the new book for weeks. So the usual creative process is like, the new chapter, this really stinks. I wonder if I've lost it. And then I fix it and I fix it and I fix it. And then I say, pretty good. And then I send it to Maymeave and Stacy. And I call them the good cop and the bad cop, because Maymeave right away. And she always calls me up and, I love it. And Stacy kind of line edits it. So anyway, yeah. So that's the process.
I'm sorry. Susan would like to know why you left Boston.
Caroline, do you stop along the way and edit, or do you wait till you have the whole draft?
Oh no, I edit constantly, draft after draft after draft after draft.
Yeah, so chapter by chapter.
Chapter by chapter.
Polish. Yeah.
Yeah.
Susan would like to know why you left Boston.
Oh, that was a long time ago. I left Boston for Northampton because my late husband, he was alive at the time, moved from Beth Israel Hospital, where my son was born, to Bay State Medical Center in Springfield. So that was the first move. And we're there. Somewhere along the line, in 2004, we got an apartment in New York, thinking that's where we'd like to be to retire. And then when he died in 2009, I had the house in Northampton until 2015, and which is the same year that I bought this house up here in the Hudson Valley.
That's great. That was always the thing about upstate New York, because I'm from New York as well. And it's like, when exactly do you start calling it upstate? We lived in Orange County for a while. And
not that I've forgiven Kirsten Gillibrand, because I'm giving her but Al Franken. I want him back. So we're getting very good on this show.
Great. Okay. I think we've covered them. Does anybody else have questions? Please feel free to ask them. Or Caroline, did you have any other questions that you wanted to ask?
Let me go look at my list. Let's see. We talked about. Tell me about. I do have a question. You're very well known in the writers community. Tell me, like, all the things that. I mean, you're actually beloved in the writers community because you're so helpful to people. how do you navigate the writers community? I mean, sometimes there's a lot of jealousies that go on, and there's also a lot of giving that goes on. How do you know, like, which is the right place to be and which is one place that you'd rather avoid?
Oh, let me think. I don't, I'm not really drawn to those like salon kind of, um, like 25 writers sitting in a circle.
Right.
I went to one of those about a year ago, and I just, oh, I know what happened. It was a year ago, and everyone went around and said something, and everyone was saying that they were too depressed to write because of Trump. And they were talking
Oh,
about, their depression and and I thought, yeah, I didn't need this. So I would say I have my, very close writer friends. And nowadays it's just, by email and telephone,
right.
but not much in any kind of group things. And yeah, not a good answer, but
No, I think it is because I think writers by nature are sort of, we're kind of introverted extroverts in that we're solitary by nature because of the work that we do. And yet, when we want to be with people, it's this intense, passionate thing. But it's usually more like three people at a time, maybe, not a whole big party of
and
people all at once. That's too much.
when I think after writing many books, then you find out sort of the like-minded people who wish each other well, who
Right, right.
you get excited about their good news, and
And they get right,
right,
exactly.
right, right. And you don't have to think about, I have this good news and I want to share it, but there are some writers who think it's like a zero-sum game. If you get a good review, they're not happy because, it might, I don't know what, deduct from theirs in 6 months.
Right, right. Do you read your reviews?
Oh, I read, I read them. I have an understanding with my Houghton Mifflin publicist that if it's a bad review, she says to me, you got your Kirkus, you don't want to read it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It is. It
That's
is.
wonderful. Yeah,
Because
because if it doesn't serve any point, I don't think, to read unless you get like 12 reviews and they're all bad and they all mention the same thing. Then you might want to think about, well, maybe I should
yes,
have done something different. But
yes.
even a good review isn't necessarily, I mean, it's nice to have the praise, but a lot of times the good reviews say, well, you did this and this, and you realize, no, I didn't. I didn't do that thing that they're praising me for. But it's nice to have that. It's nice to have
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It's a good system because you can quickly put away the idea. It's like, okay, I got a bad Kirkus, or like, oh, as opposed to reading it and gnashing your teeth over it. So of
Right,
the individuals.
right. Plus, do you feel that I always feel that the people who read reviews, like Kirkus and Publishers Weekly and other reviews, who are writers, look at the reviews differently than readers. I mean, Ron Charles at the Washington Post told me that his readers of his book column, they only care about the plot. There can be an excruciatingly bad review of a book, but if someone's reading and says, well, I want to read about nuns in the mountainside, so I'm going to go get this book. And then they do. So I think it's good for writers to remember that,
It is.
or just think about the reviews that you read sometimes that, it may not sound like a good review. And then you read the book and you think, oh, I love this book. I'm so glad I read it, despite that terrible review.
Yeah.
Well, you've reviewed books too. You review books also. So that's a whole other question I want to ask you. When you review a book, um, does it make it harder for you to review another writer because you are a writer,
I
or can you
don't
put that away?
I don't review a book if I know the writer or if we have the same agent or the same
Right.
publisher. So that does, it narrows the field a little bit. But um, I hate to write a bad review And if the book is really rubbish, then I will say to the assigning editor, you know, this book really stinks. And they say, okay, fine, you don't have to do it. And they don't reassign it because they feel, you know, they only have so much space. So
Right.
I wrote a very sarcastic review of a book that was about his friendship with Nora Ephron. And I thought that
I
it
remember that
was
review.
so self-serving.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, it's like he was an omniscient observer of every relationship in her marriage. And, you know, and it was, so it's kind of sarcastic. That's probably, I would say, the only mean, but I enjoyed doing that mean review very much.
Elinor, we got a bunch more questions
Okay.
Oh, good.
from the audience. Olivia would like to know if the fact that you're a grandmother, whether that role will appear in some future novels.
Oh, Olivia, gee, you know, I pretend I'm 36 in my characters. So maybe not in the immediate one I'm working on now, but who knows? Who knows? But anyway, yeah, no, I'm Bubby, yeah.
Mazel tov. Hank Filippi Ryan is here. Hi, Hank, and would like to know, did you have the title first? Was she always named Rachel? And how do you know when the book is finished?
Okay. She was always named Rachel. And about halfway through, I was so thrilled that I came up with this title. I thought it was wonderful and political and smart. It was Rachel, comma, redacted. And every person I tried it out on, not every person, there was a couple of people who said, yeah, they loved it. But several people said, well, I like it, but will everybody know what redacted is? And then I would take offense because I thought, well, you know what it is. Why are you, other people would know what redacted means. Everybody knows what redacted means. But I heard it enough that I thought I didn't want to go through life explaining it. So I sort of gave the assignment, and one night we have this, Jonathan and I have this very sort of, you know, like 6 o'clock cocktails, 7 o'clock Jeopardy, 6:30 dinner, but we're having cocktails, and he was working on some alliterative title. And there was a Post-it note, which is up on the refrigerator now, and it had Rachel something, Rachel was, and the third one was Rachel to the rescue. And I said, that's it, that's it, that's it. And then I quickly called Maymeave, who started screeching, which is Maymeave's very like affirmative response. And then from then on, it was received very well. And when England, my British editor, said he wanted to do it, I said, well, there's always Rachel redacted. And, you know, I threw a second one. He said, no, Rachel to the rescue. So that was that. And that's still, the Post-it note's still on the fridge.
Susan says, are you writing faster now? Do you remember me asking you to write faster at your Belmont Library book signing? And you thought I was asking you to sign my book faster? We both had a good laugh over that. I don't know if that was actually a question, but.
Oh, that's funny. You know, I think that that event was with Maymeave and Tom Perrotta. It was a long time ago, but that was a really memorable, that was a really fun night. No, I think I'm writing slower. This stupid chapter I'm just about finished took me weeks to get it right. I don't know, Caroline, do you feel like you're writing faster, slower?
No, it's the same. It's the same slog every day.
It's a slog. It's a slog.
Sometimes until you get to the draft where it all comes together, then it's pure heaven and it's worth it. But right now it's the slog stage.
Yeah. Do you have a title?
Cheryl, I'm sorry.
No, I don't either.
Cheryl said, if it's possible, will you do Zoom author events after the publication of Rachel, and will you do book club conversations? Might you return to DC for another novel?
Oh, can you see me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can, because I got this thing, Belmont Books in Black temporarily closed. Uh-oh, hold on.
Oh, no, don't worry. That's
No,
something that's
you're
going on at
seen.
the store.
Oh, okay. I can't see you, but so I'm sorry. Ask the question again. I got terribly distracted.
Sure. She said, will you do Zoom author events after the publication of Rachel? And will you do book club conversations? And might you return to DC for another novel?
Oh, I always go to DC, and I will. That kind of thing it's up to bookstores to ask to do it. I'm doing an event January 19th through Boswell Books and Independent Bookstore in Milwaukee, which is for May Meave's book, for my Minus Me. But I'm guessing that Houghton would plan some things. Of course, I don't know when that's coming out, but yeah.
Marcia asks, what type of writing did you teach at Smith?
Oh, I had this wonderful title. I had the creative writing chair. It was the Elizabeth Drew creative writing chair there. So I taught fiction writing, but it was really short stories because, it's undergraduates. You don't want them to write a novel.
Jean asked, how many of your books have been optioned for film? She loved, and then she found me and would love to see other film versions of your books.
There's been other options. Penthouse B was optioned. They all get dropped. Ladies Man had this. I remember that phone call was like, it was like a dream phone call. It was from the movie agent, and she called and said, "Are you sitting down? Are you sitting down?" You did that, and it was that Tom Hanks, and he was optioning it, and Robert Benton, for him to star, and Robert Benton was going to direct it and write the screenplay and all that stuff. And again, it gets, years go by and they renew it maybe once and then it gets dropped. So Alice Thrift has been optioned, but the only one that got a movie was Then She Found Me, and that took 18 years. Wait. Yes, 18 years between option. My son was in first grade when it was optioned, and he was already, out of college and working at a literary agency when the movie got made.
Wow. Somebody who is anonymous but says that they are a teacher would like to know, when did you know that you wanted to be a writer? Were there any projects or lessons from teachers at a young age that helped or inspired you to become a writer?
Yes, I had, when I was a sophomore in high school, then I had a teacher named Michael Sokolowski who saw something, and he encouraged me to a point that was embarrassing because it was a small class. This was at Lowell High School, and it was such blatant favoritism that he would get fired today, but he gave me special assignments, and he wanted me to write a little essay every day. And when I graduated, he wrapped up and gave me his fountain pen for my high school graduation, which I wish I hadn't lost. But yeah, so I thank him. He didn't let up. And he passed away about 2 years ago.
Oh. Does anybody else have any other questions? Thank you for answering all these questions. They're great questions. All right, I don't see any. Caroline, did you have anything else?
Let me think. I always have another question. Okay. This is an easy question. Longhand or computer? How do you write?
Oh, computer.
No, you're
Once
not
in
like
a while.
do you take a notebook with you to like take down notes sometimes?
Once in a while, I write something under the Note app on my laptop, but I don't. Once in a while, if I feel stuck, I will go to another room or another chair or couch or something with a pen and a notebook to see if that kind of gets me past my block.
So you're not an outliner at all. You just sort of move through the darkness until
I
you
move
find the
through the dark.
story.
Yeah, I move through the dark. Yeah, I don't outline. Although once in a while, well, at about 2/3 of the way through the book, or maybe even 3/4, I write a list. I say, these are the balls I threw up in the air and I have to bring them down.
Right.
The parents in the store, and, the Ivanka's Hebrew coach. And so it's a list of, not an outline, but like things I have to fix or resolve, or, bring that ball down to earth.
So when you're starting a novel, do you start with a question that you're thinking about, or do you start with character, or
Um,
what?
sometimes I start with just an opening line, and sometimes an opening line, a situation. In this case, it was a job that was too good to be true.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not much. I don't even have a first chapter. So it just sort of comes to me, and I think I'm pretty good at rejecting, if I'm going down a sort of not a blind alley, but the wrong way, then I bring it back. I read it and I say, no, 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 no. I'm very good at cutting. I've cut hundreds of pages. Started with Isabel's Bed, I had 125 pages, and I started over.
Wow.
Wow.
That's incredible. What were those? Did you ever use those 125 pages in
I
anything
did.
else?
I did. I
Oh,
sort of,
good.
I used some of it, in just sort of, from, I took pieces of it, but it was this woman. This will give you an idea, maybe, of why I threw it away. It was a woman who was taking a job as a housekeeper in a cantor's house.
Oh,
A cantor, as in,
okay.
I was listening to some cantorial music, and then it was just dead. It just
Right.
ended.
It wasn't-
But that was Harriet Mahoney, and I said, she was a would-be writer who had taken this job just to, have a place to live. So I took Harriet Mahoney and some of her quirks and gave her a job as a ghostwriter on a house in Truro to work for Isabel.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yes, I think it was called something like something in the cantor's house.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
All right. If you don't mind, I think we'll take one more audience question and then we'll wrap up. Julie would like to know, what is your favorite of all your books? Is it always the most recent? And her
Yes,
favorite is
always.
The Way Men Act.
It is always the most recent, the one that's currently for sale, especially if it's in hardcover. No, it's not. It tends to be the new one, and I think it's psychologically, it's like you have to speak for it and promote it, and it really helps if you love it. And maybe it's too because you've been with that character for a year or 2 years, and you kind of miss her. So it's a way of keeping them close.
That makes sense. Well, thank you both so much. This was really terrific and a lot
Thank you,
of fun.
Stacy.
And
Thank you, Ellie.
For having us.
Oh,
Thank you,
it's
Caroline.
our pleasure.
And thank everybody who came here.
Yes, thank
Yes,
you,
thank you all
everybody.
for coming.
Thank you.
Have a great night and Happy New Year to everyone. And may next year be a lot healthier and happier.
We hope so. It seems that going that way. Thank you
Take
so
care,
much.
everyone.
Okay.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
night.
Thank you.